Fox.
History books are made to be broken. Every generation seeking to surpass the previous.
What are we calling it?
To leave their own mark. With every moment etched in time.
Well, as a matter of fact, I think we have a special secret guest here at Radio Fox. Would Jeremy McGrath's room, please?
Phenomenal, thank you.
Honor yesterday. Invent tomorrow.
Hello, Jeremy?
That might be me.
Jeremy, how's it going?
Reintroducing Radio Fox. Broadcast by vurbmoto.
Hello. It's 1993, Weege. They want to talk to me.
1993 call? Yeah. But what if I got 94 on call waiting? How do I activate?
You can't. We don't have call waiting yet.
That doesn't invented?
No.
Wow.
Just hang up. We got Davey Coombs. He's way better.
We're no longer analog. We've gone digital.
It's digital. It's digital Radio Fox, and it's not 1993. It's 2023. Good Lord.
It feels that way some ways.
Yeah.
We brought Radio Fox back. Vurb is going to handle this. I'm Jason Weigandt. He's Kevin Kelly. I feel like I've been here a long time working with you, but not long enough.
No.
Because we tended to Davey Coombs, who did this show 30 years ago now, and you were sitting in the stands just merely listening. And you were 10 years ahead of your time, at least, because the internet didn't even exist yet.
Not in Tennessee, that's for sure.
Well, I don't know if it does now, either.
Even still, it's still tough. We're still
gotten
piping
here
the
yet.
sunshine in here for sure.
So this is it. We're in the Fox Tower. We're at Loretta's, and this is where things went down, but people couldn't see it back then.
This is literally the origins of Radio Fox, which was, in hindsight, a pretty good idea, but at the moment, people are like, what?
Yes.
You're going to do a talk show over 3 loudspeakers? And
that was it. That was the only people could
We
hear
had
it.
an audience of dozens.
Okay.
I was one of them. It was my first
And
trip.
that's-
My first trip to the ranch, man. I sat all day long with my little brother. I was helping him. It was just me and him. And they were talking about whatever this Radio Fox stuff was. I'm like, what is this? So I said, dude, I know you're hot and tired and you raced all day, but we're gonna be here till about 11 o'clock tonight.
Yeah,
So
that's it.
I sat on the bleachers and dude, I listened to this stuff happen. And it was these guys calling like Jeremy McGrath at a hotel. It was so random. And I'm like, that's what these guys sound like normal? Like, it was just bizarre to me.
Who came up with the idea? Or where did you guys come up with the idea to even try this?
Well, it's kind of a long story, but I'll make it short. Fox Racing decided to start sponsoring the event through Todd Hicks and the Fox brothers and a guy named Kurt Pingle in '92. And Pete came to the event and he was like, man, we got to do something special next year, something really cool. And I was like, well, there's only so much you can do because it's a captive audience and we're at Loretta Lynn's and it's not exactly pre-cell phone, pre-internet, pre-all that. I think my brother had a bag phone, but that was about it.
Okay. We did not have Racer TV live motos.
Yeah. So
no Vurb.
So we go to
No TV coverage.
Donnie Schmidt was racing in Europe, and we decided to go to. I was covering races for Dirt Rider and Cycle News, so we went to the first 2 GPs that year, and Pete and Greg came along, and Todd and Kurt and Tommy Rios, and we're sitting in Amsterdam at a cafe, and you can read into that all you want, but
That's where all the good
2 of
ideas
us,
come from.
2 of us did not go to the cafe to that.
Okay.
So Tommy and I are sitting there talking and like, what could we do? What's a good idea? And all of a sudden Pete's like, we should do a talk show. And I was like, yeah, let's do a talk show. How are we going to do a talk show in Hurricane Mills, Tennessee?
Yeah.
And but that was the idea, and we called it Radio Fox, and it was kind of based on sort of a Clash, London Calling / Radiohead vibe.
Punk rocky.
But what we didn't realize is that our reach again would be to the hard road, to the Team Green pits, and to the first turn. And we went to my dad and said, hey, could we play this talk show over the loudspeakers? And he's like, I don't care what you do, just as long as you don't run over top of the kids racing. I'm like, oh no, it'll be at night. And so Pete came, and in 1993 we launched Radio Fox, and it turned into like we were kind of comparing each other's phone books. Like he's like, I'll call a guy, and I'm like, well, I'll call a guy.
And this was not, these other guys didn't know you were going to call.
Oh no,
This is not planned at all.
It was as random as gets. And Fox Racing was kind of ascendant at the time. Obviously they had the Bradshaw and Ricky Johnson era, but then that kind of went away, and AXO was coming on, And then 93 was like a revitalization with Doug Henry, and eventually they would get Lamson, and they would get McGrath, and they would get, and it just, I don't know, like Pete's creativity, and also, the idea that he would come to Loretta Lynn's from California, because that was Fox Racing was as cool got.
Yeah.
Still, but back then it was like and he came and he was like, yeah, we just got to do our own talk show as if this was the Tonight Show, but it's about motocross.
And we also don't have cameras, and no one's gonna see it.
And I'm like, it's
Seven people heard it.
It's a Tonight Show without a network, without a camera, without a guest, without anything.
Other than that.
Yeah, but there were young riders here that we could, talk to, and like I said, I was working for Cycle News and Dirt Rider, and Inside Motocross, and Pete was Pete Fox, and it just kind of clicked.
Okay, but the phone calls. That was really, anyone can bench race at the announcer's tower, and I'm sure that happened during the motos. Who set that up? And then
tracking them down real time.
Like, what the heck, man?
You guys called a hotel, right?
So yeah, no. The old time folks remember this. There was a guy named Mr. Radio. He was in a wheelchair, and he came and he would set up a closed circuit radio station for us, 88.7 or 88.9, whatever it was. And so we called Mr. Radio and said, hey, if we want to do this show, could you set up a couple microphones and maybe even a speakerphone? Which there was speakerphones.
Okay.
But what we had to do is we had to take the microphone and set it next to a speakerphone, and that way we could talk to people. And then
that was it. That was the technology.
That was it.
Speakerphone.
It was
and
the
microphone.
old. It was the old announcer's tower. There wasn't even a Fox tower at that point.
Okay.
But I do believe that a big reason why we're in the Fox tower now is because that was such a cool, fun, core thing that Fox did, and a lot of people really loved it. And when I say a lot of people, again, we're talking about
12,
3 dozen,
13.
It was a baker's dozen.
You had the power of the pen, though, because you would write about this Albertine call and this McGrath call that we could talk about, and no one was ever going to hear it. No one was ever going to see it. But just the fact that you knew somewhere it existed and it didn't exist before, to me, it helped Loretta's, because you're like, well, wait, why are they calling Greg Albertine and Jeremy McGrath? They're not amateurs. Because I didn't know that this race had this interconnection where everybody had come through, everybody knew Loretta's, everyone was connected to Loretta's.
And you're only at year 11 at that point. It's just
it's just starting. It's only 10 years in.
I'm not overblowing it to say that one of the most crucial things that happened in the evolution of Loretta Lynn's was that Fox Racing, a West Coast company that did not sponsor races but had people, through the 80s like RJ and Damon Bradshaw, that they got behind this event. And we were like, suddenly we're on the map. It was the second most influential thing besides Kawasaki Team Green the first year, saying we're going to put it in our riders' contracts that they need to come here. And that's because Team Green was based in Georgia at the time. It was Dave Jordan, and it wasn't really the West Coast as much as it was the East Coast Kawasaki. And but when Fox, decided to do that, it helped the. I mean, it's hard to quantify now because hindsight is 20/20. But we were so over the top that Fox Racing was sponsoring this event for $2,000. They were the title sponsor. $2,000.
Oh my God! Wow.
I think that I think that it.
There's a little inflation at work.
I think it was a bargain for both of us.
Yeah.
So I know Pete will tell us like some stories about how this was a short-lived little thing. It wasn't like it was 9 years running, right?
What happened was that it evolved. I had a newspaper in the early 90s. I was working for Cycle News and doing other stuff. All of a sudden, and I think this show had something to do with it. All of a sudden, I was the ESPN pit reporter, and all of a sudden, Racer X was picking up steam, and the newspaper became a magazine. And then we decided to turn it over to Jason Weigandt, and a few years later, it became MX Sports Center. And then vurbmoto started getting involved, and all of a sudden, we had these things that we didn't know existed, like cameras, and the internet,
yes,
and cell phones, and we were 10 years ahead of all of that. and just flying by the seat of our fox pants, if you will.
Nice.
There it is.
I feel like they had sent the show to us to die. You guys have been doing it, and then like the first year or two I was here.
We were
still
sitting on the
Scott
bleachers.
Taylor
You remember
there.
sitting on the bleachers too here in the night? We're just listening.
Yes,
and they're
listening,
Like, hey man,
and
they're
then,
calling us up. We finally got to do it.
And then finally like you and Scott Taylor are like, you know what?
Come on up,
I think
dude.
you guys just wanted to hang out, and you're like, here, you guys do it. Probably expecting that's going to be one more night, and that'll be the end of it. And then we held it. We held the fort just long enough for Vurb and the internet and the cameras to show up.
DMXS radio.
DMXS radio.
The
somehow
Matt,
we're here
the
back.
Pulp MX,
of it.
Gypsy Tales.
Yeah.
I don't think there was necessarily a direct line to all that. We just stumbled onto an interesting idea, and between Pete and myself, we were able to get the riders to have fun.
But that was your point. You had never heard
No.
riders speaking like that.
No, it was Larry
'cause
Myers. Hey, tell me about that moto, and that's 30
That's-
seconds. Get him out of here. Like this was
Yeah.
somebody telling me about surfing that day and riding a dirt bike in the hills or whatever. I've never heard that, which I thought was awesome.
Well, and it's the context of the setting that we were in. Those guys weren't here racing.
Nope.
They were not on the podium. They didn't have to do their chug points, which didn't exist back then because
Yeah.
there was no energy
No.
drinks.
Yes.
You know, they may have thanked their Dunlops for hooking up, and they may have, talked about their
Gucanade or Prips Plus,
how great
maybe.
those Bevo goggles were, but that was about it. So when we called them on a weeknight from Loretta Lynn's, and they'd all come through Loretta Lynn's, with the exception, of course, of Albertine, they knew who they were talking to.
Right.
They didn't know how many they were talking to, but they definitely over-delivered. And then one other thing, there was a bunch of ascendant kids in the Fox holster or
Yeah.
arsenal at that time. Travis Pastrana, Ricky Carmichael, James Stewart, Robbie Raynard, and they were more than willing. If Pete Fox said, "Hey, can you come and do an interview?" and they were I honestly starstruck by Pete Fox.
Wow.
It was really cool that they I think Pete was the kind of person who would ask an athlete, like do you like this gear? What are you thinking? That's how he came up with the barbed wire stuff. That's how he came up with the RJ stuff. That's he was very much not just a designer, not just a businessman, but he was a friend to those guys, and that disarmed them, and it was just and then sprinkle on a little bit of beer.
For the adults. For the adults.
Not the
Yeah.
kids.
Ricky
Not-
did not have any beer.
Not
Yeah,
James,
yeah,
not
yeah.
Travis.
Yeah, but that was it. No one had ever heard a rider interviewed in that, not at the race, not on the podium setting. They had read it maybe in magazines, but no one had heard it before.
When you get a chance to talk to Pete, ask him about the infamous, legendary, iconic interview with Travis Pastrana, James Stewart, and Ricky Carmichael.
Yes.
It didn't take place here.
Oh, it did not?
No, it was
Oh.
Mini O's.
Oh, okay.
It was Terra Firma.
Okay.
And I think that the genesis of that got in his head here. Because he's thinking, yeah, these kids are all cool. Well, what if they were together?
About the best scouting that has ever been done. When it was those three.
Imagine that draft class.
Yeah,
That's
and
like
there
the
were other
24
riders around at
Yankees,
that
man.
time.
We got
Yeah, you could pick
DiMaggio,
those
Ruth,
three.
and Gehrig.
So talk about, so it is funny, you mentioned hindsight, because now everybody knows Loretta's is the biggest. It's hard to remember, you were around then, that it wasn't an automatic. Now it just looks like, well, it's a national championship that has qualifiers and it's fair and everyone gets a race once a year. These things weren't automatic.
No,
in the
Ponca
early
was
days.
like the deal for many, many years before Loretta's.
There were all
and-
these steps on the ladder to
Yeah,
get there.
and there's the way Loretta Lynn's came about was a direct effect of what happened literally in our family's experience at Ponca City in 1981. We went there. It was not great,
Okay. Okay.
to say the least. And my dad had 12 hours of driving
To
in
put it
him
all together.
to get here. And he had a yellow notebook in the Dodge van. On the motor used to be right there.
Yeah.
And he's writing all these things down. And my mom's, they're coming up with these ideas. But it was not as serendipitous as like Eureka, Loretta Lynn's, exit 143.
Yeah.
His friend Paul Schlegel, a fellow promoter from Ohio, more known for road racing and flat track, had said, "Hey, Coombs, we should do an event, an amateur national like Ponca City, but we got to find the right place." It's got to make it a week-long event. It's got to be good for families. It's got to be the world's greatest motocross vacation. And so Paul had been here for what was called a vetter rally. And a vetter rally was a group of Harley-Davidson people with full dress bikes would show up and ride and go to different places. It was like a poker run kind of thing.
It's crazy to think that you're going to connect that with this.
Yes. But what happened was, he said, the rally didn't do very well, but the ranch is amazing. So Dad stopped here. It was 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning. We woke up. We were all in the van, my brother and sister and I, and some girl named Amy or something that was my sister's friend, and my mom and dad. The 6 of us are in this van. And,
Where were you parked at?
Up on right by the country store.
Oh, right.
Where the ice cream cone is
there you
now.
go.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that.
But we woke up and Dad was gone. He was out jogging around. And he came back and then he got a towel, went down to the shower room, took a shower, and then said, we're going to the front office. So he drives down to the front office. We're all sitting in this yellow van waiting for him.
It's running.
And he walks out half hour later with Mooney Lynn. And they get in Mooney's Jeep and they drive over the hill. You know,
This is Loretta's husband.
Loretta's husband.
He just shows up unannounced.
Well, they live right there. I mean, they've
Still, though,
always
like-
Still working. He's working.
But it was run by a couple brothers. The Sanders brothers were the managers of the ranch, but Mooney was hands on. And this is not Sunday morning. This is Monday morning. So he had gone to the office. My dad had the gift of gab. He had music in his past. He played with a guy that was with Willie Nelson, who said the guy you need to talk to is Mooney. That took place on a payphone, by the way. Do you remember a payphone?
Yeah, 1-800-COLLECT kind of all down.
Yeah. Got a rotary.
Sure did.
And anyway, Dad and Mooney drove around, and Dad was like, the difference between this and a motorcycle rally is people at a motorcycle rally don't bring campers. People at a motocross race bring their families and their camper and their tent. And it was not like it is now with these armadas of giant flagship RVs and big buses and whatnot. But it was something that a campground would want. And Mooney was like, okay, we'll give it a go. And then our next stop was Westerville, Ohio, where the AMA was. And Dad went to the president at the time, who I think was Ed Youngblood, and said, hey, I got an idea, but I need 5 years. I need to take this nomadic youth and amateur nationals that were all over the map and all over the country. And he's like, just let me give it a central home, a standalone, even playing field at a non-motocross track and turn it into something. And Mr. Youngblood said, yeah, okay. And now, 42 years later, I like to always note the first time after each race that someone comes to me and says, I heard this is the last Loretta Lynn's.
Yeah.
And Weege, I've told you, twice in the last 5 years, it's been John Tomac. And John's like, hey, I heard this is
Oh, really?
last Loretta Lynn's. I'm like, I don't think so.
Is this the last? We're good? We're good?
Are we done?
You just won the prize.
All
This could be
right. We
it.
didn't even have a moto yet. We didn't have a moto yet. Yes.
We're on the brink of starting the race. This is a new record.
It's weird to me because, okay, I'm from New Jersey. We don't have country music in New Jersey. There's like a force field that doesn't allow it to get in. So I never knew that Loretta Lynn was even famous or popular. I only knew her as there's a race that everyone does. Yeah. There's a GNCC and there's an ATV race.
Yeah.
I only knew her from that. And I know the family has kind of come back around. We lost Loretta more recently, but they've even said, like, there's so many young kids that get to know the name Loretta Lynn through motocross now. It's kind of flipped.
It's strange how it's become synonymous with
Yes.
amateur motocross in America. And it's, that was, I can't say that was my dad's plan, that he had any idea it would be as successful as it became.
Yeah.
But he was here until 1998, and it was just growing and growing and growing. And now here we are, in some ways back where we started.
Yeah.
The track has changed, but it's still right there. No one can rent it. No one can practice on it. There's, other than the COVID year when we had a couple pro nationals here out of absolute necessity, we leave it be. And so it goes back to, that's why, it was born out of frustration with other amateur nationals, but I think now it exists to help other amateur events. Whether it's Ponca City with what Harold and them are doing, whether it's the World Mini GP, what vurbmoto is doing, whether it's Clayton Miller in Texas, whether it's the Minios, which still is just massive.
Yep.
We're all in this together. We all need to work together, and there's never going to be 2 Loretta Lyns. There's never going to be 3 Loretta Lyns.
Yeah.
We're gonna let this be what it is, and work with everyone as we have from day one, because that is what my dad envisioned. I just don't think he would have thought it'd last this long.
Or got this big.
Or got this
This
big.
big.
Yeah.
One other thing, and you got to experience this as a track owner. The other unique thing about Loretta's is all the good motocross tracks around the country are part of the program through qualifying.
Yeah.
And then I always say it's an all-star team
Oh yeah.
on the track. They all come here to help. Was that the original vision? Like, hey, we're going to help all the motocross tracks around the country. They're part of it as qualifiers. It's a wild concept.
Yeah, I do think that was part of but motocross was in a different place in 1981.
Yeah.
In 82, and for instance, Loretta Lynn's was established in 1982. So was Kawasaki Team Green.
Yeah.
And those two things happening were just like this sort of double whammy. No one could have guessed that Team Green would become the institution that it is now, that it would turn out all of those champions, from beginning with Eddie Warren, who I think was the first Team Green guy to be really successful, and then evolving into, Wyndham, Rayner, Schmidt, Matasevich, Ricky, RV, James. I mean, it never ends.
on the team right now.
Yeah,
Yep.
it never ends.
Yeah.
That began sort of on parallel tracks. They were completely separate, other than the fact that Dave Jordan, bless his heart and rest his soul, had the, herewithal to believe that this would be worth sponsoring. But the sponsorship was simply, I'll just tell my guys they got to go. And 2 of the guys were myself and my brother.
Okay.
And here's the funny thing. In 1982, we were Team Green Riders. We both quit at Ponca City. And then we came here.
Oh, you did? Yeah. Okay, you did get to race this one.
We were done after that and became Yamaha riders. But Dave Jordan stayed with it. And that's just a minor funny blip.
He was able to separate you and your brother racing for the team.
Yeah.
being part of the
He's like, Dave, your kids suck. Goodbye. But instead, he's like, Dave, your kids suck. Goodbye to your kids.
Your race is awesome.
But the
Yes.
race is amazing.
There you go.
So, and I went to college, thank God.
I like how the first sponsorship was just, we'll send our riders, that's the fee. 10 years later, they got $2,000.
Well,
So things are on the roll.
I've got a better one.
Oh, here
The
we
High
go.
Point story. And I know this is not Loretta Lynn's, but there was a gear company called High Point. In fact, Jeremy McGrath, when he won his first Supercross in 1990, Las Vegas, wearing High Point MSR gear.
Oh.
Yeah.
High Point was a company that John Penton started in Lorain, Ohio. And he, obviously was KTM, was the main guy, but he tried different things, red dot tires, oils, trailers, gear. So my dad started High Point Raceway at Mount Morris, Pennsylvania. He went to Mr. Penton. He said, hey, I've got a deal for you. We'll name the track High Point Raceway. And it's only going to cost this much money just to help us get it started. And John Penton was like, I don't know. And so Dad came home with no money because it was a short drive. And he had to take the sign he'd already had painted that said HI-point, saw it in half, and then add a G and an H. So High Point became High Point.
High Point.
And the really shitty part about it all, and he wanted $500.
Couldn't scrape it up. Couldn't commit.
$500.
Wow.
And so now we have High Point Raceway. Heavy on the GH.
Yeah. Would have been a
on
nice
the
investment
So
back then.
the sport was so different back then. It was so much fun, and I guarantee you that Ricky Johnson's first Fox contract was like, I don't want to say low 5 figures, but probably high 4 figures.
Yeah.
You know, it was
laughable.
so much different than it is now.
Right.
And you know, some of the things that you see now, but it had to start somewhere. And Loretta Lynn's and Kawasaki Team Green were part of that in a much lesser extent. So was Radio Fox.
Here we go. Hey, we went all the way around.
Put a bow
All
on
the
it.
way around. That was well done.
Good stuff.
All right, that's some origins of the show, which ties into the origins of the race.
Yeah.
Which I think people have heard these stories in general before, but no better refresher.
Not the lineage, like the linear,
No,
how that all works
wild.
together.
Yep, and now we just take it for granted. All right, same thing with playing highlights. We'll be right back.
I didn't get the halfway signal.
So good.
What is the vurbmoto Shred Tour?
That was rad.
Only the greatest time of your effing life. Imagine a 24/7 summer camp with dirt bikes.
That's what it's all about.
Who else can claim they've jumped off the world's largest rocking chair? No one. It's a Guinness World Record. Who else combines live wrestling and dirt bikes? No one. Activities for all ages, including Stasic and Granger E2 demos, amped bikes, e-moto racing, fist gloves, free hot dogs, bands, and yeah, actual real racing. Oh, and a free $20 to motorsport.com everyone who comes through the gate. Yes, everyone. Join us for the vurbmoto Shredheads at Fox Raceway, October 28th and 29th in Hala, California. Visit vurbmoto.com for more details.
We're back. We got the
think so.
rotary phone. We got a great history lesson from Davey Coombs. So you got inspired by this. You
Yes.
started the DMXS radio in 2001.
Yes, made millions, and I retired from that.
Yes.
Just travel the globe announcing dirt bike races.
The low ball money that Davey was just talking about.
Oh.
You really mimic that part.
Yes,
as well with
I would-
DMXS.
Minimal amounts of sponsorship
Yeah.
ever. Free T-shirts usually what I'll do it for.
And then it just keeps rolling. So we got Gypsy Jace here. Jace from Gypsy Tales.
G'day,
Good to see you.
boys.
And
G'day, mate.
you're probably saying, what kind of two-way special effects, green screen
He's here in
So
America.
I'm
did
in
they do?
Australia.
This is
Yes.
green screen.
We've managed to make it work again.
He's a day ahead of us right now. So
This is
these
real.
questions, we sent
Do a
these
wide
questions.
shot. Give me a wide
no
shot right
spoilers for
now.
the
He's
motos.
really here.
No
He's-
spoilers for the
touch
motos
hands.
tomorrow, boys. I won't spoil any of them. We've already run.
We've already
that.
seen
Yeah,
him.
we've
He's
already
already seen him because
seen
he's
him.
in
Thursday.
Australia.
You guys
Oh,
are killing it.
yeah,
Yeah,
by
he's
the
a
way.
day ahead.
Day ahead. You're in America. You're really in America. You're really here in the flesh.
And I'm in Loretta's. I'm not in America.
This
I'm
is
at
America
Loretta's.
as it gets.
Bro, I remember you in your previous American exploits. You had never come to this race?
No, so there you have like the OG of Loretta's,
Yeah,
and then you
that's
literally
Davey.
have like
Yeah.
Baby
I'm like
G.
an adopted puppy that you've just got home, and I'm pissing everywhere. I know none of
Yeah.
the rules.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I'm very happy to be here.
How many people, and you were at Washougal, and then you
Yeah.
were here, have said, wait, you're real? And people want to touch you?
Yeah,
like a
yeah.
hologram?
It's actually it's bizarre to just like go away for so long and
Yeah.
then you come back. But it's honestly been so cool to meet so many people, see all of you guys. Like there's a lot of my friends in this room now.
And you go way back with the Vurb boys to begin with.
Yeah,
Day one.
I hadn't seen Wes as kids. Like I literally flew from Washougal to go to Idaho so that I could get thrown up on and like kicked in the shins by kids, and it was awesome. And then straight to Loretta's.
Oh, that's proper then.
Okay, so you didn't go to Loretta's
No,
when
I've
you
never
lived here.
been, yeah.
Right, so, but what is that? Okay, so I want to know, when you don't see it in person, what is the vibe that you had thinking about it?
So all right, we'll backtrack to like the history of me with Loretta. So I come from about as far away from Loretta's as you can get.
Yes.
So it's like North Queensland. Like we had like magazines and DVDs at Christmas. That was it.
Yeah.
So like I remember watching Loretta's on like mini Warrior tapes
Yeah.
back when I was like a teenager, and just thinking that this was the craziest place ever. So I mean, it is really cool to be here like this many years later and kind of doing work in the industry, and to actually be here like me and Wes, we walked around and did a lap yesterday. I'm just like, this is sick. Like, this is everything that it should be. And I mean, the coolest part as well is, like, today there were bikes on track and the dudes were ripping and it gets gnarly and it gets rough, and it's like, I expected that. But like the history that everyone has with each other, the friendships that have been built here, like the vibe of the people, and whether you're a kid that's trying to win Loretta's or whether you're just the dude that's like so stoked that he finally gets to put a bib on, and maybe he's been trying for like 3 or 4 years. Like, there's so much.
So that
in
that
this
translates
place.
all the way back to you. Like, just making it is
100%.
important to a guy like you. Even feel that.
Yeah, 100%. And to be here in person, and I mean, and I honestly didn't even expect to be here either. So like,
Wes forced you.
Yeah, well, not really. He just said, well, I'm going to Loretta's on Saturday. I'm like, well, I mean, I could go to Loretta's on Saturday.
But this was last minute.
Very last minute. But now that I'm here, like, I guess I didn't know how important it was to come here.
So tell me about topping
fan.
that hill, because that's everybody when you first top the hill.
Oh man,
speaks to you.
just to see, like, this is a city. So yesterday I actually got dropped off at Loretta's house and I did a run back to here. So I went all the way back, well, lot 5, lot 6, way back there. And to run past that, like, everybody here, and you're just seeing all of the different levels. And I mean, there was people that were at the signs, like the
their
house,
pictures.
And you don't factor in any of that. Like, you know how important this race is, and you know what it means to these people. But there's so much more, like, under the hood that I don't think you couldn't feel it unless you were here in person. So it's been so cool.
And what I always like about it is, we always say it's the hardest week of the year, and it's the most fun week of the year. And that's whether you're doing our job, or you're the dad, or you're the kid, or the mechanic, or anybody running the event. But the fact that you're here for so many days, even the experience you got at Washougal, it's so in and out.
Yeah.
You get to be cordial for a few minutes.
Yeah.
You have a few casual combos, but you don't really hang out.
Yeah.
It's everybody's working.
Yeah.
Here you have enough time where it feels like you're actually getting to be moto buddies for a couple days.
And you're just in it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure that, well, it's Tim Ferry actually said this today. He goes, when you leave Loretta's, you drive down the freeway, and then it hits you that, like, this isn't real life. Like, this is, you spend a week, it's like a crucible, you're in this, like,
and
little basin
don't you
surrounded
think
by trees.
The fact that you don't get cell service, like I was over there with you guys, y'all went to shower, everybody left their phones. I'm like, that is bizarre.
Oh,
like, you
mate,
didn't even care. You don't need it.
It's been so good. And like they have Wi-Fi, they got the amenities here to do that. I have not hooked my phone up to that Wi-Fi. I'm just out. I'm here. I'm in it. Hey, when am I going back to California? I don't know. I haven't booked a ticket. I could be here till Sunday morning.
Just like Wes's first trip. He stayed 4 or 5 extra
Well,
days.
He's been here 24 years.
Yes, I don't know if he ever left. Yeah, so your show, I feel like, is based all about that, the good vibes, the cool coreness that's so hard to explain, but we all know it, and you try to get it out there. That's why I'm so pumped you're here, because I feel like that's what this event is.
I'm very lucky that I just get to do what I like.
Yeah.
So like this for me, mate, I would be in the dirt, camping all of these days. Like, to me, being at a dirt bike track, hanging around dirt bike people, because I think like the show side of it is like, we all like the same thing. So whether you're like Jason Anderson and you've won a Supercross title, or like you're me and you can't really ride that good, it's like we like the same thing, we do the same stuff, and it's like there's so much that translates then outside of motocross. It's the kind of like that. Did we just become best friends? So it's like that's the vibe. Like, that's what I enjoy about dirt bikes. I feel like I can find real like common ground with people. It's like, if you like this thing, then you're probably like a pretty good dude. Like, you've had some injuries, you've like worked a lot for stuff.
Probably on your second wife.
Yeah,
Because of that,
yeah. So it's like, we've probably got a lot of cool stuff in common,
Maybe that's me.
Yeah, well.
It'd be me.
But it is the thing about motocross. It doesn't make a lot of sense if you try to put it on paper. It makes
tell
no
everybody
sense.
where you're going. I'm going to go to this place. Can't talk to you. I've spent a chunk of my time and money and just
anything.
I broke my femur 6 months ago.
And I'm back. I barely made it in.
The amount of time it takes to work on the bike, to pack the gear, to drive to the track. When you think about that, in America, every town has 5 baseball fields. I don't know what it's like in Australia, but I'm sure it's the same thing with rugby or whatnot. How easy it is to do those sports.
Yeah.
You compare it to this, it doesn't really make any sense until you do it. And then you can't explain it, but it makes sense.
Oh, and it's just one of those things where it's like, I really do think that it does get in your blood. you know. And then even coming to an event like this, it's like, it's greater than the sum of its parts.
Exactly.
You know, you can't, there's a juice in there. There's like a magic in there. You can't explain it to someone. You just got to be here. You just got to do it. And you're right, like, well, my wife has no idea about motocross. Like, literally, didn't even know it was a sport, didn't know it existed.
How often do you ride? Like, I don't even ride,
Twice
and
a
I
week,
still
baby.
love it. I haven't rode a big bike in I don't know how long, and it still means the same thing to me as it does you, which is crazy to me.
That is actually a really good point. Whether I'm riding, like, I'm currently in like full riding mode twice a week, pounding out motos, but whether you do that, like when I started the podcast, I hadn't rode in like 8 years. I was living over here. I didn't have health insurance. It was like kind of one of those things. I was like, all right, I probably shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah.
But it's like, I still love the sport the exact same amount. And I think that's probably with, you know, like the media side, I think that's what I'm passionate about. Like if you look at sports like the NFL, baseball, like you can be a fan 365 days a year. And I think that's something that I've always been passionate about with like the media side of this business. Before I did the podcast, I was filming with these guys. I'm just like, man, we should just be like living this, you know? Like, let's talk about it. Let's get into it. And I think a lot of other sports, they really kind of have that. And I think like where sort of our sport is kind of getting to that stage now where it's like, you're just a lifer. Like 365 days of the year, you can be like into this and it's like given to you in that you don't have to ride.
Can you appreciate like when we're talking to Joe or when we talk to Jet or how hard it is to come here, qualify for one of these things and qualify the regional, the investment and the pressure, and Joe had no idea, well, whatever. And then Ken Roxon probably knew it was a big deal, but like, it's so weird. It's
cool how it translates too, and like you couldn't fake something like this, and you couldn't replicate it. Like there's only a few things. It's almost like the Super Bowl. Like the Super Bowl is the Super Bowl. Like you could play, you could take two teams and you could play one big game that's like pretty important. But is it the Super Bowl?
It's not Super Bowl.
And it's like greater than the sum of its parts. You know, like
these kids have all met a few times this year already.
Yeah, but this is the one.
Deal. This is the deal.
This is the one. Yeah. And there's something there that I think it's really, really hard to replicate. It's really hard to replace. And I think it's important to do. I mean, there's kids from Australia that are racing here right now, you know, and it's like there's a path if you want to. And I think that the way that it's structured, the format of the races, like you can't fake a Loretta Lynn's championship, you know. And I think that that's something where it's like that's why it's become this ultimate proving ground, because it's like there's no way that you can fake your entire way through this process and end up as a champ. And it's like if you want to know whether it's teams looking at you for a ride or whether it's you yourself knowing that I'm good enough to give this a go and actually be my career, it's like this is a place that sorts the men from the boys.
Yeah, and I hear a lot people say like, but why would you put this much emphasis on one race? Like, wouldn't it be better to have like 20 races or 12 races or 10? But the point that everyone knows you have to perform this one time, to me that is the point, because how many stories are you hear about like, this dude is so fast on Wednesday, but when the lights are on, it goes away, or another guy gets better. That's what makes it hard. Struggle is what made you. Sitting in that staging area for an hour to think about your moto and sweating, that is the ultimate test to see if you've got what it takes.
And also, whether you're a kid, like if I ever tried to qualify for Lorettas, it would be about qualifying for Lorettas.
Yeah.
The same thing that you're talking about.
That dude's getting the same high.
You copy and paste the dude that's going to win, and like he wants a factory
I just want to get 20th.
Or you get a guy that's like, I just want to get a bib. I want to prove it to myself that I can work hard. And that's
that pressure.
But that's what makes life skills. And to go back to that point of like, I like these people. Like these are my people. Like I like to come to this race or go to Washoe or go ride at a shred tour about like, these are my people. And I think that whether you're the dude that's going to win tomorrow or whether you're the dude that's going to get last because it's going to happen to someone, you're a bad dude for making it here. And those skills that got you here and the grit and the determination and the injuries you went through and the financial pressures that you went through to get here, like that's going to be a thing that makes you into this dope person down the track. And the other thing that I think is so underrated about motocross as a sport is the fact that I'm 35 years old and I do my holidays with my parents because we go do dirt bike things. And I think that there's such like a family values here, whether it's like if your kid doesn't make it in this game and he doesn't go on to get a ride, if you're still friends with your kid at 35 and you're like, dude, you're winning life. And there's a lot of that stuff that gets built on a place like this.
That's what the parents always tell me. It's windshield time. You get that much time on the road hanging out with your kids when if you did something else, they would be long gone at the mall, hanging out with their buddies. The last thing I was going to say to you is you've got mostly moto on your show, but you do dabble in other things. What I've found when I cover other sports is, especially racing, even if motocross is the number one, the respect level for motocross. No one is ever like, oh, that's what you do? That's lame. That's what you cover? That's lame. Do you get that same?
It's pretty cool. Like, I didn't realize the effect that Supercross and motocross had on other guys. And it's like, to excuse the name dropping, but it's like you get guys like Daniel Ricciardo, Casey Stoner. You get like every dude in the top 10 in the downhill mountain biking world championship, NASCAR. Like, everyone looks at these dudes, and I had no idea.
Exactly.
Like, I had no, until I started doing the podcast and you start seeing the people following the account and wearing the merch and doing, and you're just like, these guys are legitimate fans. And why? Because of respect. They look at these guys, and I mean, we all look at like MotoGP and Formula One and we're like, this is insane. All those guys are looking at these guys.
Yeah,
going,
and they're bigger stars. They're bigger stars.
100%.
But the respect level is higher for this. It's crazy.
And I think that we've got a very cool thing, and this is probably like what I consider my job in the sport, is like, okay, I need to connect these dots. I need to show this. Let's get some social kind of proof going here to where it's like, that's the story I want to tell, is it's like, hey, it's your favorite driver's favorite rider kind of deal. And, you know, and I think that if I think of what I would like to do is like, I'd like to kind of be a part of that process of like spreading that message that like, hey, these are the bad dudes that all these bad dudes look at.
Yeah, when I hear downhill mountain bike guys talk about our sport, those are so gnarly to me. And they're like, you guys are nuts.
They're frothing, bro. Like, all they want to do is like bench race mode. Like, so DR texted me after the press conference at Washougal. Like, who would think that those guys on a race weekend are like watching the press conference here? And it's like that, I'm like, that is super cool.
Yeah, the respect level is high from other great athletes who are arguably bigger stars. That says pretty much everything. Struggles what made us. Motocross is hard. That's the point.
And you know, like you'd see, it's so cool to hear the evolution of this, you know, through Davey, man. It's just like, we're just getting started, you know, like we've got, and you see like the new scoring tower that's here. Like, this is a city. Like, make no mistake about it. We're living in a city for a week. That's just like, it's a temporary, there's like rubbish man going, and there's like, we busted a leak yesterday at our trailer, and we had like the fix-it dudes coming. Like, this is a machine. Like, this is like, we're in a real place right now, you know? So this is, this is a super cool deal.
Awesome. Glad you had to experience it. You got a call?
It's Jeff Leask.
Oh, well,
the flying freckle.
I mean,
that's my guy.
To go all the way down to Australia on this kind of phone. Imagine what the price per minute.
What does this cost?
I'll cover it, boys. I'll cover it. We're good.
Okay.
We're good. Talk, chat away.
We're going collect.
We're gonna shut it down, man. Thanks, Chase, for being on this,
me,
and we'll see you guys. I think we're gonna do this again tomorrow if they got the budget.
We're not burnt out yet.
No.
We'll keep it going.
No.
Thanks, boys.
Jason Macalpine, good to see you.
Legends.
In person.
We're going. Missed it. That was it.
All right, that's Radio Fox.
He's on.
Oh, that's, I was kind of hoping. Give you some direction.
Yep.
That's great.